As I've said many times in the past, it's impossible to parody the left. The problem with trying to come up with memes is the memes come true faster than you can come up with them. And this story is a meme. This is everything wrong with Canada and Zoomers and liberals all in like one story. So let's just go through this. He's from Rwanda, she's from Canada. This married couple has never spent a Christmas together until now. I'm going to warn you guys, there's going to be a lot of Dems are the real racists and libs are the real racists in this. Let's see here. Emily Knopp never questioned if it was worth it. Despite being more than 11,000 kilometers away from the love of her life, having to communicate over a crackly phone connection and repeated failed attempts to bring him to Canada, she knew almost for the start that they had to be together. Notice, I think something to keep in mind just as you're reading this. Why does she have to bring him to Canada? Why can't she move to Rwanda? Like, notice there's always that aspect of this. And once again, this is kind of like, I want to call it, maybe it's almost kind of like a subconscious racist thing with liberals. It's like they kind of inherently view these people in their countries as being inferior because the focus is always to take refugees from there and bring them here rather than take people from here and send them there. And the narrative is like really incoherent because it's like, okay, well, Islam is very tolerant and women have more rights in Muslim countries and African countries are more feminist and they're more enlightened and they're more accepting. And yet we're the transphobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, evil, bigoted, racist white people, but we aren't fleeing here to go there. So isn't that kind of like an implicit declaration of superiority or supremacy if the belief is they always have to come here? I don't know. Just saying. Ben, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Never doubted it either. Within 3 dates, he says he knew the two had something special. I'm sure they did. Once again, this is like the whole Zoomer mindset. We'll get into why she was there because that's another aspect of this. But we have this whole like romantic Disney view of the world, love at first sight. It's this like, so just to kind of go ahead a bit. So, oh, okay. Let me just see here. So, I'm going to go ahead and then we'll talk about this. We didn't know at the time that we were going to get married and end up together, but we had to try. The question was how. Nop, 25, is from Toronto. A certain person is from Kigali, the capital city of Rwanda. The pair met in 2015 while Nop was traveling in East Africa during a semester off from university. And within the span of just a few weeks, they knew they were falling in love. It was crazy because we were from two different countries and it felt like two different worlds, Nop said. But as she prepared to head back home, she and Ben decided that they were going to try to make it work long distance across oceans. Okay, so let's just go through and analyze this because there's so many great tropes here. I don't think it says here, it might say later whether or not this was an aid thing, but I know when I was in university, something all of the like upper middle class swipples would do is they'd go on foreign aid trips. I had a number of them who asked me to give them money and I told them to screw off. So what it is it's this scam where they're like, I'm going to go to some random third world country and save people with no agency. And we're going to go there and we're going to like take work away from the local population. And instead of paying the people there to build wells, we're going to build wells ourselves. Except they don't even really do that a lot of the time. From my understanding, a lot of them just go there, get drunk, or take illicit substances and just have sex the whole time and just kind of use it as a vacation, often one that's funded by people who donate money because they think that they're helping out. But I think that's like the funniest aspect of it, like the whole local labor. It's like, okay, we're going to go there and build houses. Well, what about the fact that the unemployment rate in the community is like 30%? Shouldn't we just use the money to pay for those people? Plus, labor costs are cheaper in that country, so wouldn't it be a lot less expensive than flying in? No, we have to go there. It's important that we learn about people who are less fortunate than ourselves. So why don't you work in a soup kitchen or with homeless people on Toronto? No, because they aren't real suffering people. Real suffering people only come from Africa. The people who live on the streets of Toronto and yell at things that aren't there are privileged. So we can't help them. Loving your neighbor doesn't mean caring about people in your family or your street or your town or your region or your state or your country. It means going to a random third world country and caring for those people. When Jesus said, love thy neighbor, that's what he meant. So, like the guy you see on the street, that guy's not your neighbor, but Ben from Kigali or whatever it's pronounced in Rwanda, he is your neighbor. And once again, this is like the whole so there's that aspect of it. And I think the most insufferable thing is these people in a lot of cases think they're doing good. Like they're like, oh, I'm saving the world. It is very paternalistic in a bad sense. Because it is, the joke is like, my white senses are tingling. I'm going to go save people with no agency. And that's kind of like what this is. It's like, oh, the people in Africa, they can't do anything for themselves. So like as a white person, I'm going to go there and I'm going to like rescue them. And it is kind of implicitly racist. It is kind of like a Dems are the real racist thing. And you also have this like whole, because I remember in university when I was learning about Orientalism, I thought it was bullshit. I'm like, no one thinks that way. But these people think about it like that. They're like, oh, I'm going to go to this exotic place and meet this exotic guy. And he's exciting because he's something different and unusual and strange to me. And it is like, it's xenophilia. It's deliberately looking for something. You know what? A friend of mine had a really good way of describing how white liberals view minorities, and particularly people who are like first generation. They view them like they're pets, and that's like almost what this picture looks like. That this dude is her pet. He's like, you get like a tegu or a monitor lizard or something, and you pull it out and you show people, and they're like, wow, that's crazy. I've never seen something like that. And that's kind of like what they do when they like adopt kids from Africa or something like that. Because it's not like, it's not about helping. Because if it was about helping, it would probably be easier to just adopt a kid or foster a kid like from down the street. It's about having like an exotic pet like a chihuahua or a Burmese python that you can show people and impress them. And frankly, like, it really does kind of disgust me. It is very demeaning. I mean, you can think what you want about different people in the world, but to kind of just use people as like fashion accessories, especially when you have this whole like do-gooder, oh, it's I'm doing the right thing, I'm like virtue signaling. It makes me really sick. In some ways, I kind of have more respect for what China does. Because China just doesn't care. Like, they don't even pretend. They're just like, yeah, we're going to screw these countries. We're going to take all their natural resources. We're going to make China economy strong. We don't care. And to a certain extent, I respect that a lot more. It's like, it's bad. It's like greed. But it's at least like, there's no pretense there. There's no like fake caring. It's just, yeah, we're doing this for our own self-interest. We knew there was something serious there. Over the next several months, the couple kept in touch by phone, email, text, and FaceTime. Anything to make the distance feel shorter. And once again, she probably had no interest in like men in her own community because they weren't like exotic. Like if she brought home like Pierre from down the street to meet her parents, it'd be like, oh, it's some like guy who was born in Canada. That's not interesting. But Ben from Rwanda, I remember there's a movie that came out about that, and I liked that movie. And like, it's like he's an actor from that movie. It's one of my favorite descriptions of liberals. Is everything their entire perception of the world is based on what they've seen on TV. So I bet you any amount of money that when they heard he's from Rwanda, he's like, oh yeah, he's like one of those guys from Hotel Rwanda. I love that movie. I bet you any amount of money, most of her family did that. It was hard, but because we knew there was something serious here, we kept trying. We were prepared mentally for that. We always knew that anything that comes and challenges our relationship builds us and gives it more reasons for us to be together. She was in university at the time, of course she is. And every time she'd get a break, she'd fly to Rwanda, sometimes for months at a time. The flight alone averages $1,300. Well, how was she able to? She probably had wealthy parents or something who paid it for her. Like in Rwanda, that would probably feed multiple people for a year, and that's part of it. There's just so much waste involved in this. Like this bitch probably complains about like carbon footprint and shit like that, and here she is flying multiple times a year to Rwanda. Like it makes me sick. It's a horrible feeling when you've been through something as traumatic as the genocide. That's her speaking. It's a horrible feeling when you've been through something as traumatic as that's like in first person. So isn't that is she saying that she was through the genocide? So is she saying that she went through the genocide? Or she wants to like cash in on the fame of that, I guess is what they're doing. And this is like another thing. It's like it's kind of like ambulance chasing, but a lot more pathetic. Because with ambulance chasing, there's at least like money involved, and I can kind of like respect that because like it's something rational. But I always bring this up. So on my mother's side, a lot of them are German Mennonites from Russia. They were Volga Germans, and they fled Russia during the revolution when the revolutionary insurrectionist anarchist black army was committing genocide against the Volga Germans and the various Germans throughout the Ukraine. So they lost their land. They came to this country with nothing, yada, yada. But I don't like bring that up constantly as like a way to be cool. And here she is like basically saying, unless she just can't talk, which is another issue, that the genocide happened to her. But when it came to Ben coming to Canada, that wasn't an option, the couple learned. The first time they tried to apply for a visitor visa around Christmas 2016, they were denied. Among the reasons, his lack of family ties in his home country. There's a reason for that, he said. He lost his mother and much of his family during the Rwandan genocide. His father survived but died soon after. In the months afterward, Ben, still a child, made it to a refugee camp near Congo, where he had become separated from his younger brother. His older brother, the eldest of the three, eventually settled in the United States. Once again, this kind of comes from the people he called family in Rwanda were mostly his closest friends, something the Canadian government considered a red flag. Once again, you have the national disaster. I call this the natural disaster view of history. This is how liberals view history. These things just happen. The Rwandan genocide wasn't the result of severe social problems and a collective decision made by an ethnic group to destroy another ethnic group. It was just something that happened. Like, there was no agency involved. None of the people made decisions there. So why would you be worried about the people who perpetrated that genocide going to another country? Like, why would you be concerned about that? Let's see here. It's a horrible feeling when you've been through something as traumatic as the genocide, losing your parents, losing your connection with your brothers, losing aunts and uncles, and almost having to defend it, say, no, but I'm a good person and you should accept me, said Not. It made me feel like I was worthless. But, like, okay, so something bad, like, does that mean, so because something bad happened to him 20 years ago, that means he should just have the right to come to Canada? Once again, I don't see anywhere in this article where she says that she tried to move to Rwanda to be with him, which I think says something. It's like, our love is eternal. Our love is the most important thing. We'd do anything to be together. Did you try moving to Rwanda? No, I don't want to live in that hellhole. Also, like, anybody can say they're a good person. Okay, let's see here. The following spring, Nop returned to Rwanda, this time her family in tow. They got married shortly now that he could move to Canada so that they could build a life together. At least that's what they thought. Then came the crushing news. They were denied a third time. Yeah, they were denied because this is a big issue in Canada and a lot of Western countries where they'll pay Canadian citizens to marry the person so they can come to the country. Let's see here. Every rejection became a reminder of his childhood drama, feeding a fear that his future would forever be dictated by it. So let's see here. You blame yourself when you go through that. There's always these moments where you think, because I'm not worth living, maybe I'm not worth living. Why am I still around? Maybe I should have gone with my family because everyone is treating you differently. This is such lame emotional pornography. Like it's so stupid. Let's see here. Then in a cruel twist, the paperwork was lost. This meant restarting the process. Wasn't Justin Trudeau in power when this happened? I think it was Stephen Harper's fault though. Let's see. He was allowed to come to Canada. 21-hour trip. Exhausted and nervous, but more than anything elated. This looks like family. This is what family does. Seeing how happy everyone was, welcoming me. It made me feel like even though my family passed away, I still have another family. It felt like I was coming home to a country on the other side of the world that you have no ties to. Some of them you have never met, but when you see their faces, how happy they are hugging you, it's another level of humanity. I felt like I was coming home even though it was my first time being there. Oh, so fucking lame. Why didn't she move to Rwanda? Is that addressed anywhere here? Through it all, Knopf says that the pair have learned about patience, love, and what matters most. Actually, this was on Facebook. I might actually post there with my account and ask and see what people say about that. Putting on all these layers, I feel like I'm heavy, almost congested. I'm like a kid looking around. Everything's different. And this is by Shanifa Nasser, who holds a master's degree in Islamic studies. We'll talk about Canadian Muslims some other day. Let's see here. Why is this news? Yeah, all these people are supportive of this because CBC really, really heavily censors their comment section. Actually, I'm shocked this comment section is even still open. Let me see if I can post here. Maybe I'll post on this. Anyways, oh, they make you log in. Of course they do. You can't let those right-wing trolls express their opinions on the internet. You gotta deal with it. So that is everything wrong with Canada and millennials in one story.